The cognitive exoskeleton. How to use AI without losing ourselves. The story of humanity is not simply the story of empires, inventions, religions, markets, or machines. Beneath all of that runs a deeper and more ancient story. The story of human extension. We were never the strongest animal. We were not the fastest, the largest, the most physically protected, or the most naturally equipped for survival. We did not dominate the planet because we had claws, fangs, armor, or speed. We became the dominant species because we discovered how to extend ourselves beyond the biological limits of the body. The stone blade extended the hand. The spear extended the arm. Fire extended the stomach, the tribe, and the night itself. Clothing extended the skin. Shelter extended the womb. Writing extended memory. The wheel extended the legs. The telescope extended the eye. The printing press extended the mind across generations. The calculator extended arithmetic. The internet extended access to knowledge. Every major technology in human history has done two things at once. It has expanded what we can do, and it has changed what we become. That second part is the one we often miss. A tool is never just a tool. It is biology continued outside the body. It is evolution by other means. It is the nervous system reaching outward into stone, fire, symbols, machines, networks, and now artificial intelligence. This is why AI is not just another productivity tool. AI enters the most intimate space of all, the space where thought begins. A hammer does not suggest what you should build. A bicycle does not decide where you should go. A calculator may give you the result of a calculation, but it does not frame the problem, write the argument, generate the hypothesis, structure the presentation, simulate judgment, or produce a polished answer before your own mind has fully entered the room. AI does. And that is precisely why it is so powerful. It is also why we need to be careful. Not because AI is evil, not because technology should be rejected, not because the future can be avoided by romanticizing the past. Humanity has always moved forward by extending itself through tools. The question is not whether we should use AI. We should. The question is whether we will use it as an extension of human intelligence, or as a replacement for the mental effort that builds human intelligence in the first place. The brain is not a fixed machine. It is living tissue. It adapts continuously to what we ask of it. This is one of the most profound facts about the human organism. The brain strengthens the networks it repeatedly uses, and it weakens the ones it no longer needs. Attention, memory, judgment, empathy, language, orientation, emotional regulation, and strategic thinking are not abstract abilities floating somewhere inside us. They are biological capacities shaped by repetition, friction, environment, and use. In simple terms, what we practice, we become. If we practice attention, attention becomes stronger. If we practice judgment, judgment becomes sharper. If we practice memory, memory becomes more available. If we practice emotional awareness, we become more capable of reading ourselves and others. If we practice sitting with uncertainty, the nervous system becomes less fragile in the face of ambiguity. But the opposite is also true. If we consistently outsource the first thought, the first formulation, the first synthesis, the first act of judgment, and the first moment of intellectual struggle, then something subtle begins to happen. We may become faster on the surface, but weaker underneath. We may produce more, but originate less. We may sound more intelligent, while becoming less capable of independent thought. This is the paradox of AI. It can make us look smarter before it actually makes us wiser. The human brain is, in many ways, a prediction machine. Every second, the nervous system receives an overwhelming amount of sensory information, far more than conscious awareness can process. To survive, the brain compresses reality into patterns. It builds models. It makes assumptions. It predicts what is likely to happen next based on what has happened before. This is efficient, but it comes with a biological price. The brain becomes good at what it is repeatedly required to do, and it becomes less precise in areas where the environment no longer demands active participation. We have already seen this with other technologies. GPS made navigation easier, but many people became less capable of forming internal maps. Search engines gave us access to almost unlimited information that changed our relationship with memory. Smartphones made connection constant, but often weakened sustained attention. Contact lists made it unnecessary to remember phone numbers. Autocomplete began finishing our sentences before we had fully formed them. AI takes this pattern deeper. It does not merely outsource memory or navigation. It can outsource the process of thinking itself. That is the real shift. When AI gives us a first draft, a first strategy, a first interpretation, a first conclusion, it does something psychologically significant. It anchors the mind. It creates the starting frame. And once a frame exists, the human brain tends to work from it, edit around it, and improve it, rather than returning to the raw, uncomfortable, generative space where original thought emerges. This matters because the first thought is not just a beginning. It is a cognitive act. It is where perception, memory, experience, emotion, intuition, and judgment first meet. If we lose the habit of forming the first thought ourselves, we risk becoming editors of machine output rather than owners of human insight. And this is where the distinction becomes essential. AI can be a cognitive exoskeleton, or it can become a cognitive crutch. A cognitive exoskeleton strengthens the human being inside it. It allows us to lift more, see wider, think deeper, test more possibilities, compress complexity, and explore perspectives we might otherwise miss. But the human remains active. The human sets the direction. The human carries the responsibility. The human applies judgment. The human decides what matters. A crutch is different. A crutch compensates for a capacity that is no longer being used properly. When AI becomes a crutch, we stop entering the problem with our own full intelligence. We ask before we think. We generate before we understand. We accept fluency as competence. We mistake polished language for truth. We become dependent on answers before we have developed the quality of our questions. That is the danger. Not that AI will become intelligent, but that humans may become passive. And passivity is not neutral. In biological systems, unused capacity declines. The brain does not preserve expensive neural architecture out of sentiment. It preserves what is used. It prunes what is neglected. This is why the future will not belong simply to those who use AI the most. Access will become universal. Speed will become cheap. Production will become abundant. The internet already flooded the world with information. AI will flood the world with answers. But when answers become abundant, judgment becomes scarce. The real human advantage will not be the ability to produce more content, more slides, more reports, more emails, more strategies, or more polished language. The real advantage will be the ability to know what is worth producing, what is true, what is shallow, what is missing, what is ethically dangerous, what is contextually wrong, and what actually matters. That is judgment. And judgment is not merely logical. Human intelligence is embodied, emotional, social, and biological. We do not think only with the brain as an isolated organ. We think with the whole nervous system. We think through memory, posture, gut signals, emotional tone, reassuring context, and lived consequence. A human being can sit in a room and sense that something is wrong before language explains why. We can hear hesitation in a voice. We can detect incongruence between words and body. We can feel when a decision may be technically correct, but humanly destructive. This is not mysticism. It is embodied cognition. The body is part of the intelligence system. The nervous system is constantly reading the world before conscious thought catches up. The gut, the heart, the vagus nerve, the hormonal system, the face, the breath, the eyes, the skin, the posture. All of it participates in how we assess reality. Much of what we call intuition is not magic. It is compressed experience. It is the organism recognizing patterns before the conscious mind has translated them into words. AI has no body. It has no childhood, no hunger, no fatigue, no shame, no courage, no mortality, no responsibility, no consequence. It can simulate language about human experience, but it does not stand inside human experience. It can generate ethical arguments, but it does not carry conscience. It can describe trust, but it does not risk betrayal. It can analyze leadership, but it does not feel the room when a team silently loses faith. This is why we must not confuse synthesis with wisdom. AI can synthesize information, but wisdom requires contact with reality. AI can produce language, but meaning requires human orientation. AI can generate options, but responsibility requires someone who can be held accountable. The more powerful AI becomes, the more valuable the deeply human capacities become. Attention, discernment, empathy, memory, moral judgment, embodied awareness, emotional intelligence, imagination, and the ability to remain conscious under uncertainty. Especially uncertainty. Because the modern world is not becoming simpler, it is becoming more complex, more ambiguous, more accelerated, and more psychologically demanding. In such a world, the most dangerous person is not the one without information. It is the one with too much information and too little judgment. AI will increase that risk. It will give people language for things they do not understand. It will give them confidence before competence. It will make weak thinking sound strong. It will make generic insight sound strategic. It will make average people sound temporarily exceptional, while quietly reducing the friction that would have made them genuinely better. Unless we change how we use it, the solution is not to use AI less. The solution is to use it more consciously. Begin with your own mind first. Before asking AI for a strategy, write your own rough hypothesis. Before asking for a post, define the idea in your own words. Before asking for an analysis, state what you already believe and where you are uncertain. Before asking it to summarize, decide what you are looking for. Before accepting an answer, interrogate it. Before publishing anything, ask whether it carries your judgment, your perception, your standards, and your responsibility. AI should remove unnecessary friction, not meaningful friction. There is a difference. Unnecessary friction is formatting, translation, repetitive drafting, information sorting, versioning, administrative work, and mechanical restructuring. Meaningful friction is the struggle to understand, the struggle to decide, the struggle to find the true sentence, the struggle to separate signal from noise, the struggle to form your own view before the world hands you one. That friction must be protected, because that is where expertise is built. This is the new cognitive discipline of the AI age, knowing what to outsource and what to keep human. Outsource speed, not responsibility. Outsource structure, not judgment. Outsource variation, not taste. Outsource repetition, not attention. Outsource assistance, not authorship of thought. The bicycle is a useful metaphor. When the bicycle became common, it expanded human range. People could travel farther, connect across greater distances, work differently, marry outside narrower local circles, and physically extend their world. But the bicycle still required the human body. You still had to balance. You still had to steer. You still had to pedal. The bicycle extended the human without replacing the human. That is how AI should work. AI should be a bicycle for the mind, not a wheelchair for thought. It should help us travel farther intellectually, not make us forget how to walk cognitively. It should expand our radius, not collapse our inner capacity. It should make strong thinkers stronger, not turn capable people into passive consumers of fluent machine language. After writing, intelligence was no longer just memory. After the calculator, mathematics was no longer just mental arithmetic. After the internet, knowledge was no longer just access to information. After AI, intelligence will no longer be the ability to produce answers. It will be the ability to govern thinking, to know when to accelerate and when to slow down, to know when to ask the machine and when to sit in silence, to know when fluency is hiding emptiness, to know when the first answer is not the deepest answer, to know when the human being must remain fully in the loop, not as a decorative supervisor, but as the source of direction, responsibility, and meaning. The future does not belong to those who reject AI. It also does not belong to those who surrender to it. It belongs to those who can use artificial intelligence without abandoning human intelligence. Those who can extend the mind without weakening the thinker. Those who can let the machine increase their reach while still protecting the ancient biological disciplines that made us human in the first place. Attention, memory, imagination, empathy, courage, discernment, and judgment. AI will change us. Every tool always has. The only question is whether it will change us into sharper, deeper, more capable human beings, or into faster, more fluent, more dependent versions of ourselves. That choice will not be made by the technology. It will be made by how consciously we use it. The end.